Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining this information session about Tuck's Next Step program for military veterans and elite athletes. My name is Margot Laurie. I'm the Director of Client Experience for Tuck Executive Education at Dartmouth, and I'm the Program Director for Next Step. It's so nice to have people here in the session who I've been emailing with, and we've had phone calls, so it's great to bring this group of folks together. Today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the program format and curriculum and share some ways that you can submit your most competitive application and, of course, take your questions. I'm also really excited that we have 3 Next Step alums who've joined. They're going to share a bit about their background, transition story, and tell you how Next Step has helped them achieve their goals, post-military service and athletics. And I'm going to pause at a few different spots for questions, but feel free to put things in the chat as they come up for you, and I'll keep an eye on that and I'll try to weave those responses in. And I'm also going to start off by giving you my email address and our website, so you have those 2 things handy. Let's go ahead and get started. So what is Next Step? Next Step is a general management certificate program designed to help military veterans and elite athletes prepare for the transition to a business career. So these are the essential principles of an MBA degree. Basically, like the first 6 months, that's what one of our professors likes to say, distilled down into a smaller package. These, as I mentioned, once we get into the topics a little further, if you considered an MBA degree, you'll recognize all of these subject areas. It's a broad toolkit that will give you foundational business acumen. And so that differs from some other programs in that we are focused on a general management approach. So that's breadth rather than depth in any one particular area. And the benefit to that is that the curriculum will prepare you for a wide variety of job functions, industries, and really give you kind of a solid foundation to pivot in multiple directions. It's an education that will serve you in a lot of ways and over a longer period of time compared to something that's more targeted. And both have benefits, but today we'll spend some time talking more about the curriculum and hopefully showing you why this might work for your particular goals. The format of the program is hybrid, so we're blending the best of an on-campus experience with the convenience and accessibility of virtual learning. There are 3 modules in the program, and I'll describe the format in more detail shortly, but you'll spend some time learning live online, then you'll spend time on campus, and then you'll spend the final module live online as well. The subject areas that we'll cover in the program are, like I said, if you've looked into an MBA degree, you will have seen these before. Corporate strategy, innovation theory, design thinking, strategic communication, financial accounting, managerial finance, marketing, branding, operations, negotiations, leadership and influence, managing others, strategic networking. And then we also include many career development sessions, so focusing on resume development, interview prep, and networking skills. And at the end of the program, you'll be ready to maximize the skills and experiences that you already have from your athletic career or from your military career. And you'll be armed with new knowledge to really make sure that you can present a balanced, you can balance what you already have with some current hard knowledge and skills. And you'll be able to approach your job search strategically and better line up the experience that you bring with you already with the jobs that exist in today's marketplace. And you'll also be able to describe what you can bring to the table to a civilian hiring manager more easily. The folks who are looking at your resume most frequently don't understand what it's like to be an Olympic rower, or they don't understand what it took to be a Navy SEAL. And so what we'll help you do is translate what you already have so that you can really best convey the value that you'll bring to an employer going forward. The other big outcome of the program that people ask about a lot is, how will this help me get a job? And so in our most recent data that we've collected, I'm happy to say that over 80% of the cohort received at least one job offer or promotion since the program. And that's really exciting. We can't take credit for that. Of course, we're happy to prepare you for that. But some of the outcomes that I really like to talk about are how the participants feel about themselves after the program. And I think anyone that's going through transition will understand that mindset is a big part of it, that, shifting gears in terms of how you think about yourself and where you seek impact and fulfillment is really important too. And so Participants who complete the program, we'll follow up with them periodically, and they consistently report feeling more skilled, more capable, more optimistic, less uncertain, less negative, along with those really positive career kind of tangible job offer outcomes as well. A big aspect of the program that's not rooted necessarily in the curriculum, but that's more about the group that you'll be taking part with, elite athletes and military veterans, is the connections you'll form within the cohort. It's really special to be in a room with 70 people who are going through the same experience you are. They're facing similar challenges, and they come from a background where they recognize that this is a really niche situation. Not many people achieve, their peak goals so earlier in their career and then need to start over again. And so the connections and relationships that you'll form with the other members of your cohort are going to be really impactful, and you'll carry them on long after you've completed the program. And I think we'll hear more from that. We'll hear more about that later from our alums. But it's so special to be in this group. If any of you do apply and take part, you're going to see that right away, that the strength of the network in terms of the personal and professional applications is really significant. I'll also address now how this program differs from some other either transition programs or like actual degree programs that you may have heard of if you're considering other options to Next Step. So one of them is the fact that Next Step takes a general management approach. And as I mentioned earlier, this means that we focus on a broad variety of topics and skills that are applicable in many different situations. So those subject areas I mentioned will prepare you to be in many different types of roles, prepare you to run a small business, prepare you to work in consulting. It won't give you absolutely everything you need, but this is an essential kind of basic foundation that you can build on through additional job experience or targeted training or like specific skill sets and certifications. And this is different from other programs. For example, I'll mention a popular program at one of our peer institutions, the Stanford Graduate School of Business, Ignite. So just for example, we differ from Ignite in that their curriculum is more narrowly focused on entrepreneurship, building new ventures, gaining investors, and that's really valuable too. In fact, we have many people who take part in both programs, and they complement each other really well. But it's just a point of difference to understand as you think about that. I also want to mention that Next Step is part of our executive education portfolio. That means that it's not credit bearing. At the end of it, you'll get a certificate from us, but it doesn't, it's not an actual degree compared to like an executive MBA. That is a real degree program. So Next Step is an executive education opportunity. We're also academically oriented. So the roughly 85 hours of content that you'll experience is really focused on academic learning. This is curriculum that's taught by Tuck's faculty. These are full-time faculty members, the same that our full-time MBA students work with. And we do talk about kind of transition skills related to career development, as I mentioned before, resume writing, interview prep, networking, but we don't address the kind of broader challenges of transition that relate to physical health, mental health, overall well-being, things that impact families or other support networks that you might be involved in. Those are really important aspects of transition as well. And there are many programs out there that dovetail nicely that are offered through NGBs, the US Olympic and Paralympic Committee, or veteran service organizations. They're a really good complement to Next Step, but those are things that we kind of don't touch on. We are a business school, and so we sit very specifically in that business education arena. And the last thing, which I mentioned a little bit already, that makes us different is that we bring athletes and military veterans together. And as far as I know, we're the only kind of formal education program, or at least the first to do this. And the pairing came up really naturally for us. And we felt it was important to create an experience that wasn't, that broadened the participants' perspectives. So frequently in programs that are just for military veterans, for example, there's a lot of really rigid structures that come into it. If you're doing something that's just for your branch of service, or just for your unit, or just for your team, it's difficult to be entirely open and vulnerable and really see yourself in a context outside of that. And so we felt when designing the program that it was important to bring two groups together to try to broaden the perspectives, the depth of connection, and let people open things up a little bit rather than keep it narrow. And as I mentioned, the camaraderie between elite athletes and military veterans is really strong. these two groups have very similar perspectives and skills and capabilities in common that employers value. And the challenges that you're going through in the process, you'll see that a lot in each other. But I think it's, just personally from what I observe, I can see that there are people sitting in the room who don't recognize their full value, but they can really easily recognize that in someone else. I think that's part of the human experience, that it's often difficult to see ourselves clearly. And so it's really powerful to be in a room with people who can get you right away on a fundamental level, but also can broaden your perspective and show you things or think about things slightly differently. So shifting gears a bit to the format of the program, the schedule, and the time commitment, here's an overview of what the 2023 program will be. The first module, which I mentioned, is live online, takes place March 6th through 9th, and the daily time commitment is about noon to actually 5:30 p.m. Eastern. I'll share the detailed schedule with you shortly, but participants can expect to be in live virtual class sessions with our faculty during that time each day. So if you do apply, be sure that you can clear your schedule for that specific time period. Then we'll take about a 2-week break before the cohort assembles on Tux campus in Hanover, New Hampshire. We're a part of Dartmouth College, and it's a lovely, as you can see from this photo, it's a recent photo. We're secluded. It's a lovely, beautiful setting, and that's one of our strengths. It's one of our signatures of our MBA program, is the setting and the kind of introspection and deep connections that our community, just the setting in our community offers. And so we're really delighted to have a residential component back in the program this year after 2 years of virtual programming due to the pandemic. So after the cohort comes to campus, there will be another 2-week break and then a final virtual module. Again, that'll be live online from April 17th to 20th. And again, the same like approximate hours of the day. So here's a more detailed view at our schedule. This is the first module, live online, and you'll see that the first week of the program focuses on some of the foundational principles. These are largely strategy. And so we'll talk about, professors will talk about corporate strategy, how organizations large and small will make decisions about their, the products that they pursue or things that they don't pursue or relative positioning to other companies. Talk about innovation strategy, disrupting ecosystems, supply chain in operations, and about managerial accounting, how managers make decisions about pricing their products, making cost decisions, and how those impact margins. And I'm not the faculty, so that's about as far as you're going to get from me. Look forward to more details during the program. And then going into the live, the on-campus module, these subject areas shift gears into more functional. So these are more specific and relate to discrete functions within a broader organization. So things like communication, finance, you'll see there's, this is where the quantitative stuff comes in. And don't be nervous about this. It's a lot. And if you're not familiar with Excel, it would definitely help to get some basic Excel skills under your belt before the program, but there's no test. Everyone at the end gets a certificate and a gold star. So it might be pushing the learning edge for you if you're new to that kind of stuff, but it's actually really important that you get in there and learn some of these things. So at least you're familiar with it and you won't be shocked once you get into a job and somebody says, make a spreadsheet or model that for me. So that comes into the curriculum on campus. There's also a lot of interactive content here. So the communication sessions in particular, design thinking and negotiation are really structured around exercises that you'll do with your peers in small groups or in large groups. And design thinking in particular is really fun. So we've chosen these sessions because the benefit of being together and going through them in person is really strong. There's also an event, we do a Shark Tank, which is lots of fun. Each person, no one's obligated to pitch, but each person has the opportunity to make a pitch, whether that's about a totally hypothetical idea you have or an actual business you've started. It's great fun to practice those skills of making a case quickly to other people, and you'll get feedback from a panel of our faculty. So another 2-week break, and we're in the third and final module of the program, again, live online. And in this module, we focus on leadership skills, managing people, managing self, how to be a great supervisor, strategic networking, and managing your visibility. These are things that athletes and veterans, you have a lot of this. And so Our faculty actually really love this because compared to the business school audience, they get to teach kind of at a more advanced level, which is really exciting for them. And they learn as much from you as they're trying to teach you. In fact, it's more like helping you refine and shape your experiences and put them in a different context. So this is always a really great part of the program, and it leads to a fun conclusion with our onward and upward session. So I haven't seen any questions come through in the chat. I'll just pause there briefly to ask if anyone has questions about the curriculum or format before we turn it over to our Next Step alums for them to share a little bit.
Hi, I was wondering what we need for technology.
Sure. So we do recommend that each person bring a laptop to the program. And if you don't have a laptop, we can loan one to you. We discourage tablets. That we do use like full Excel in the program. And so again, if you don't have Excel, we can work with you on getting access to that. So definitely a laptop is preferred and not a tablet. And if you don't have either of those things, we'll make sure that you can borrow one from us.
Doesn't matter if that computer is a Mac or if it needs to be a PC.
Nope, either one is fine.
Good morning. Sorry. You can go
ahead.
Okay, mine's quick. Going forward, do you think Tuck will stick with a hybrid format, or do you think in the coming years it'll move back to fully in person?
I expect that we will stick with a hybrid format for this program. And in fact, we had a hybrid format for the program in 2019, even before the pandemic. Karen, who you'll hear from shortly, was part of that program. The nice thing about that is that it does a few things. One, it lets the group come together before they're on campus. So you've already met each other, your wheels are already turning, you're re-engaged in learning, which is something that can be like a little bit of a ramp up for folks who haven't been in the classroom for a while. I mean, all professionals in our executive education programs, they're not full-time students. So it takes some time to kind of get back into a learning posture and practice those skills and really engage in that way. So that's the nice thing about the virtual content, is it lets you ease into it. And we set some of the foundation with those essential topics before we come to campus and dive more deeply in functional areas. And as I said, you've already started to meet your peers in the cohort. So once you get here, it's like greeting a friend rather than meeting someone for the first time. So that means you can kind of really accelerate that. And there's some practical advantages as well. Of course, to bring you to campus for longer than a week is really difficult. Most of you are still training, you're still on active duty. It's not easy to get away from, work and professional obligations and family for a stretch of like 2 weeks. So there's some, accessibility and practicality reasons as well. And finally, stretch is a lot. It's like 85 hours of content, as I mentioned. And so stretching it out over a longer period of time gives you more of a chance to digest. And it means you don't get oversaturated in the moment. Like at the end of the day from spreadsheet modeling, we don't have to jam something else on there because you're not going to learn anything else. It gives a little bit more time to sink in and for people to work through it at a more reasonable pace. Thanks for your question.
My name's Alan. A quick question for you. With regard to the period in between the sessions, is there course material that'll be that essentially is homework of some kind or projects that will take place in between the virtual sessions and the in-person ones?
Yeah, hi Alan, nice to see you in person, virtually. Yeah, great question. There is pre-programmed work. So most of the class sessions have either a reading or a very short assignment. We'll give you all of that about 6 weeks before the first online learning module. And so you'll know exactly which session it applies to. And we recommend that you do it like entirely before the program. It just gives you the most bandwidth to engage with your peers and faculty and not have to like spend the night before doing the reading. So that's why we give it to you way in advance. You can plan that out as long as you do it before the session takes place. You can plan that out how you prefer. And in the 2 week breaks in between, no, there are no formal activities. There's no inter-module assignment. It's just all of that. All the work for each session is given to you at the outset. So you can fit that in how it works best for you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, sure. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Chetta, did you have a question as well?
Oh, you nailed it. Thank you. Great to meet you, but they just covered it. So thank you for checking back.
Okay, perfect. I see a question in the chat about people who already have an MBA, and that is frequently asked. I will get back to that when we talk a little bit more about the application process and eligibility. So thanks for that question, Janess. Is there anything else about the format and curriculum?
Hi there. One quick question. I know that we're talking about the hybrid model, trying to look at the schedule. Is module 3 all online, or is it their option to be in person as well?
It's all online.
Okay.
So modules 1 and 3 are live online, definitely not on campus. I mean, you can come to Tuck and sit in a public area on your laptop if you're that committed, but no one else will be here, and the faculty will be teaching remotely. So probably just come during module 2.
Perfect. Thank you.
Joshua, I see you have a question about the normal class size. 70. 70 is the cohort size. Yeah, and something else I just want to emphasize about those 2 online modules in early March and in mid-April, those are live. So they're time specific, noon to 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We do that's the time span that we found works best between East Coast to West Coast and people who might be stationed abroad. So unfortunately, that does present a problem, sometimes for international participants or people who might be stationed in Asia, but we've had committed people who made it work in the past. We had someone joining us from New Zealand last year. That was really impressive for 2 weeks. So I recognize that it's a little bit of a barrier, and we'll do our best to work with you on that. And Christian joined from England, yes. Maybe that's a good segue to hear from our alums. So,
should I just jump in?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Hey guys, my name's Karen Charchan. I was in the U.S. Army for 25 years. And I retired 3 years ago yesterday, which is crazy to say out loud. I went through Tuck Next Step in September of 2019 when it was the hybrid model that Margot is talking about. And depending on where you are in your transition, varying degrees of what I'll say will resonate with you now or in the future. But after 25 years in the Army, I couldn't wait to do anything else, right? I really thought it was all about getting a job too. I was focused on a job. I knew I didn't want to do what I did in the Army anymore, but I didn't know what I wanted. And I was one of the people transitioning out of uniform where I was all in on the Army and I didn't prep very much. I had underestimated the transition and overestimated a really poorly put together plan, quite frankly. I put all my eggs in a couple baskets, and I was fortunate enough to do a fellowship in corporate America on my way out of the Army, SkillBridge, if you know what that is. I quickly realized that wasn't what I wanted, and I wasn't interested in contracting and that kind of thing. And just like that, my poorly put together plan fell apart. So I went through a period of absolute panic. At 2 a.m., I was reading the pay difference between Lyft and Uber drivers. I was freaking out. I was overwhelmed by the options. I didn't know how I fit in or how I could possibly be competitive in industries I was only entering. So on top of that, I experienced what I didn't expect, and that was I struggled with identity, a loss of purpose, a sense of team, belief in myself, and I later learned a lot of us experience this, both athletes and military, and for varying periods of time, but very few talk about it. Then I found Tuck Next Step. I heard it was transformative. But I had no idea what I was in for. And I'm so relieved to hear that we're going back to a week in person, because those conversations that you need to have occur at the bar or by the coffee machine or, you know, in the restroom while someone's splashing water on their face because they just had a realization. It's fascinating. At Tuck, I was grounded in a profound way. I got an orientation to the business space. I learned the language, how my experience was relevant. I had options. Again, I learned the profound similarities between military and athletes, and that we were going through similar difficulties. And I was surrounded by, and this was huge for me, a high-performing team and network who were committed to seeing each other win. And I hadn't experienced that for a while, and it was a game changer. And that included the attendees and the faculty. I also found my why and my entrepreneurial direction forward. So I feel so strongly about Tuck's programming and the community of athletes and military that I've researched athlete and military transition dynamics for the last couple of years in anticipation of launching a nonprofit to support both of them. And we'll be launching that in the new year. So that's my transition story. I could go on and on, but I won't. So I'll let others talk, but thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen. Let's hear from Jen.
Hey everyone, see a few familiar faces in here from the pivot program that we did over in the last, I don't know, month or so. I don't know. For many of you, maybe this involves you, maybe it doesn't, but for me, I guess I can only speak for me. My transition happened relatively recently, but maybe it was happening for longer than I thought. I got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease in 2019. I've had back problems for as long as I can remember. I'm an elite rower. I'm still saying am because I'm not entirely convinced that I'm done yet. But that's part of the transition, and I think that's normal. I just recently moved to Cleveland, to start a new job as an executive director for the Cleveland Rowing Foundation. So I just, was able to use what I learned in the Tuck Next Step program. It's finally starting to pay off a little bit. Like the whole process that was taking a very long time in my mind, like a year. I was like, well, am I ever going to get a job? Am I ever going to get out of this constant rut that I'm in? And I think the belief and the team that we had with Tuck, the community that we were able to form with the athletes, with the military personnel, with the leaders of the Tuck Next Step program, really provided a sense of community for me, where I previously just felt like I was doing this. I felt like I was doing it all by myself. And for someone who is very used to taking control of a situation and trying to just make something happen, I'd reached the end of my rope of how far. You can only really do so much by yourself. So really leaning into the teamwork portion of this, being vulnerable in these sessions, being honest about where I'm at, what I want to get out of it. And again, I would be happy to chat with any of you outside of this, if you ever felt like you wanted to ask questions about this, because I could go on and on about why it was a helpful program for me. But it definitely helped me get the skills, the hard skills, put them in place so that I can continue to build on them. Because there was some business acumen that I just had no idea about. So again, I could go on and on like Karen. The transition, what I'll say last is that transitions are messy. They are very messy. They are not fun. They are not pretty. They are not sexy. But if you can lean into the community around you and find like-minded people that want to help you grow, everyone gets better as a result. So that would be my takeaway. So thank you.
Thank you, Jen, for sharing your experience. Christian, let's take it over to you.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Christian Martinez. I'm currently in the Army Reserves serving as a military intelligence officer. And next month, about 37 days from now, I'll be hitting my 20th year in the Army. So I started my transition planning early on, and I actually met a mentor through Veterati who mentioned this program to me, in addition to the other one that Margot mentioned earlier. And I looked into it. With only a week to apply, I decided to take my shot. And I say that because my mentor, he left me with that Gretzky quote of you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So now, over a year later, I'm a Next Step alum. I completed a data science program at the University of Cambridge because I was living out there. Moved back to the US after spending 6 years in Europe. And now I'm working in a career and in a position that I was actually targeting when I was coming into the program. I was also working on a business plan that unfortunately didn't work out, but I was at least able to fall back on the position I'm currently in now. And the program did bring several people, veterans and elite athletes who have their own businesses, who are working in their own careers as well. And I was able to connect with a few of them because I was targeting the tech sector. I spoke to somebody from Facebook, somebody from AWS, and others as well. And then with their support, I'm now a technical program manager for Amazon Web Services, where I work artificial intelligence and machine learning. So at the same time, I'm still continuing to support the intelligence community within this role. So in a sense, it does help me bridge that gap between jumping from my previous experience into the private sector. So the program was really able to, I was recharged, right? And it gave me a sense of purpose, direction, and where I needed to go. Majority of my career I've spent in the defense sector. So as a reservist, on active duty, and as a defense contractor. So like many others, I would be lying if I said that the transition from where I came from to the private sector was easy. I joined Amazon Web Services last December, and I'll say maybe 2 months ago, I started maybe feeling like I was getting a good footing on the ground with the whole transition. And really what helped me was the community that you build and you develop within the program. You get access to the community through different communications channels. And I think somebody mentioned that you work with like-minded individuals who are, they're ready to go. They hit the ground running, and they give it their all day in and day out, whether it's within the program or what they're doing as an elite athlete or as a veteran, whatever that may be. A big community of like-minded individuals. And then what also helped was the colleagues that have a defense background at Amazon. And then, of course, the knowledge that I gained through the program, it really did help me. The faculty there is really top notch. And then the program does touch on a lot of things that you'll need to prepare for your next step. So I'm available if anybody has questions through email, call, whatever that may be, at all hours of the day. So I'm happy to help anybody with their transition.
Thank you, Christian. So I'd like to open it up to the audience now. Would anyone like to ask some more specific questions of Jen, Christian, or Karen?
Hey, I guess I've got one. Appreciate the three of you guys telling your stories. That was definitely value added. Of the three of you, how much did you leverage what you learned here, or how much did this help inform whether you need to carry on your education with an actual MBA or any sort of other formal education? Over.
So Mark, for me, this was a really great appetizer. And as an athlete, I'm not sure if any of you work out, but appetizers are really good places to start. But I was like pretty hungry after. I was like, I'm still hungry. So, but where I was at with my own transition, I actually needed a job, but I really wanted to go back to school. So I was like, man, this is a really good opportunity. I think I'm going to put this for later, but depending on where you are with your own transition, I think it makes sense to like decide, do I have the funds, the resources, bandwidth to do school after this? For me, it was really simple. Like I needed a job. So that was my main goal. But for you, it might look totally different.
Yeah, I don't know where my screen went. Here it is. So I love what you said, Jen, about it being an appetizer. Mark, one of the things that I knew I wanted to get out of Next Step before I went was like a personal inventory. I wanted to know what was next for me, what my possibilities were, is really what I want to say. And then weighing them, like, do I need to get, I mean, there's a process, right? Like Jen said, it's different for everyone. You get an introduction to what the possibility is. You get, and like Margot said, it's general. So it gets into a number of different things that you are able to dig into with potentially other certificate programs or an upskilling program afterward. Or if you want to go into an industry that you don't have that experience in, you have an idea of what direction you might want to go in. And then you're weighing that against what your financial situation is and, you know, what your individual circumstances, your family situation, all those other things. But Talk Next Step is like the fundamental building block of the future for you, I think. So that's how I would put it.
You know, something I'll add, since this dovetails nicely with what Jen and Karen said. Mark, we get that question a lot. I'll talk more specifically about the MBA part and whether that makes sense and how Next Step plays into that decision making for some of our participants. But to Karen's point, one of the components of the program is a career day, and it's a whole day where we bring in a series of panel discussions of people who represent different industries, different size companies, different job functions, different paths to get there, different backgrounds. And the intent is to give you some more professional exposure so you can see the example of like 45 other people that were in your shoes and went forward and what they made out of it and how they figured that out, what were the challenges and what were the resources that they needed to do that. And to, both Karen and Jen's points, a lot of it is, you won't get everything you need out of Next Step, for sure, you won't. But a lot of it is just understanding like an inventory of what you have now, what you could possibly do with it. How does that line up with what's interesting to you? And then a list of like ideas and other gaps you might want to fill in and how you can do that. So it's a low cost experiment and thought exercise to start you thinking about all of that. And absolutely, you will be equipped with this curriculum, but it's not the end of your learning journey for sure. But there's some different calculus about like whether a master's degree or an MBA or more, more full-time education is right for you, which we can talk about in a little bit. But yeah, thank you for that question. It's a really good one. Does anyone else have questions for our alums?
Hi, my name's Hannah, and once again, thank you guys for coming and being here. Really appreciate it. One question I had was, were you guys still taking classes, or had you guys already finished your undergraduate degrees when you guys did your Talk Next Step?
So I had completed my undergrad and a master's, and I was actually thinking about an MBA. Sort of goes into the previous question. And I still think about an MBA because I still have that entrepreneurial spirit. And I do think back on these days of speaking to actual people that were in an MBA program in that career day. But with or without an undergrad, I think it's still helpful. It will help you guide and lead into that decision of whether it is or isn't for you.
And Hannah, I'll talk about this shortly, but there's no educational requirement. So whether you're still working on your bachelor's degree or not, it's not a requirement, but it just might play into the timing and whether it makes sense for you now or later, and like how much focus you can give the program at this point. There's a question in the chat from Adrian. Which one or two classes were the most impactful?
So I think that's changed for me over time, right? I still have my top next step notes and I still go back and look at them. But for me at the time, what I needed was the entrepreneur, like the whole entrepreneur block. It made me realize, the process by which, you could take that entrepreneurial journey, that it was within reach. And then when we had career day and there were entrepreneurs there who were successful and had walked in my shoes, I realized for myself, I didn't need an MBA. And I was introduced to a number during career day. I learned more about some nonprofits out there that support entrepreneurs with ecosystems and things like that, where I didn't have to get an MBA to do it. So, and then over time, as I've been on the entrepreneurial journey, there are other things like, some of the finances and things like that that are more relevant. But it helps me to kind of strategize what I should be doing as time progresses. I hope that's clear.
There were 2 courses. I mean, all of it, I took something from each module. They were all really helpful. To be honest, there were some I think that I liked better because I was naturally better at them. And there were some that I disliked or struggled with more because I was like, I don't have a background in finance, for example. And that was way over my 6'3" head. And I'm just like, what am I doing? But what was great, and my class was actually completely virtual. So we relied heavily on the chats. What I found is that many people were struggling with the same things that I were. People that I thought were like way smarter than me, whatever, fill in the blank. And I think one of the programs that or modules that was really beneficial for me was the reminder about relationships, building relationships, maintaining relationships, and like having the right intention when you are building those and building good foundations. The other one that I thought was very interesting and fun, this is sort of at the end, was an innovation. It was all about innovation and designing stuff and sort of eliminating the judgment that you put on yourself and how we can sometimes hold ourselves back from amazing opportunities because we limit ourselves. So that was a pretty cool, I enjoyed that one a lot.
I was just going to type, that was actually one of my favorites too, the design thinking courses. Sometimes in the military, you're told to develop a 5-year plan and you just sort of throw something together. But for this one, the professor is able to help you chart and help you think outside of the box and stretch your mind a bit and develop 1, 2, 3 types of courses of action for your life, so to speak. But it's not done in a way where it's just, hey, do this and develop it yourself. You actually come back, brief the class, talk to the professor, and then go from there and try to expand it to what it is you really want and what it is you're really looking for.
I want to add something that I think is really important too, is the faculty are amazing. I mean, the dean and the deputy dean come out and they talk about how much this program means to them. And what they also feel, and all the faculty are this way, they want to support you. So if there's something that doesn't resonate immediately, because it is a lot, it's transformative, it's a ton of stuff at once. And if you need to get clarity later where you're actually applying some of the skills that they've kind of taught and maybe you didn't get it they're making time for you because this program means a lot to them. So you can email them after, whether it be, for me, 2 years after I went through the program, and ask them a question and they're responding, and they want to help. So know that it's not like a lot of certificate programs out there. You show up, it's virtual, and there's no like human interaction. You're in receive mode, and then you disappear and they're done with you. That is not Tuck's way. And that's what's amazing about this program.
Thanks, Karen. That's, that I can say from the Tuck perspective, that is absolutely our intent. And there's Karen with her giant hydration jug, which she has had for 2 years and brings to every Zoom call. Karen is our Next Step mascot, so we know each other really well. That's great. Thank you, Karen. But yeah, we truly mean that. And the point that she just raised relates to something that Greg put in the chat. And this is a really good segue to our last and final section of the session. So before I address that, I just want to thank Jen, Christian, and Karen again for your time and for sharing your experiences. I think they all put their contact information in the chat. So if you want to follow up, you can do so. So yes, the program is not transactional. You are really, at the end of it, part of not just the Next Step community, but the Tuck community. It's a product of everyone at the school, current staff, current students, who, by the way, MBA current students have a role in the program. They'll provide one-on-one coaching opportunities for you. Our faculty, our alums, that comes through in not just in the way the program is funded, which I will talk about, but also in Career Day. The vast majority of people are Next Step alums or Tuck alums. They make themselves available to you, and you can reach out to really anyone in the Tuck network, say that you are part of the Next Step program, faculty, staff, alums, and they'll respond to you. They're eager to do what they can to be of service, because this truly is a product of our whole community. So Greg asked a question: do alums have access to Dartmouth Career Services? In executive education, we have a platform for alumni, which is called My Tuck Exec Ed, and we do provide some career services resources there. There's a lot, our career services department at Tuck puts out a lot of content, and much of it is about transitions and about those topics that are really salient for people at the beginning of a job search. Things like resumes and interview prep and networking and strategies along those lines. There is not one-on-one support available from our Tuck Career Services department. They really are, the resources are focused on the full-time MBA students, but there are different opportunities for you to, as I said, tap into those, that content that we offer you and each other in the network, and Tuck alums more broadly. So I'm going to cover a few logistical points here just quickly before we wrap up and take final questions on the application process. So who's eligible for the program, and what's the typical profile? The only eligibility requirement is that you have 3 years of military service or 3 years of experience as an elite national team athlete in whatever that means for your sport. So it can be slightly different for each one, but that you were training or competing at the national team level for at least 3 years. You do not have to have a bachelor's degree. Most people do, but that's really a product of timing. So if you're still working on your bachelor's degree, you're probably not quite at the point in terms of a transition or a career path yet that you need to augment it with Next Step, but that might not be the case. So just those 3 years of experience in whichever category is relevant for you. For a transition timeline, it's ideal to take part in the program no more than 6 months ahead of your separation or retirement, and you can take part afterwards. So we have people, actually even better, more impactful many times, if you are already in your role or you're already in your job search, because you're applying what you're learning right away. It's not going on the shelf, it's not sitting stale, and then 2 years later, you're like, what was that thing I learned? You're using these connections right away. And we do have people that come even 2 to 5 years later who perhaps took a job that wasn't the right fit for them, realized it, and came back to us to get some help in pivoting after their initial transition. So we actually do not consider candidates who are more than 12 months out from separation. That's the other part of it. So if you have more than 12 months left at the time that the program will take place, you'll need to apply for another application cycle. And the question about MBA degrees, Next Step is not intended to be like a prep experience for an MBA degree. So if you know already you're set on getting an MBA seriously, like you're taking the GMATs, you're looking at schools, you're writing essays, things like that, you're in earnest engaged in that process, it's not going to be the right fit for you. And we would prefer that you didn't apply. We really want to prioritize the limited spots in the program from people who will get the most impact out of it, that it will be transformational for them. And if you're going to go on and get an MBA degree, you're going to repeat all of the content that we have, and your like affiliation will be with whichever school you go to for your MBA. And we want people to feel that strong affiliation with the Next Step community. So if you already have an MBA degree, generally this will all be repetitive for you. So again, we don't tend to consider those candidates. We do make exceptions if your degree was earned, like, let's say 10 years ago, or entirely online, or from, perhaps a different caliber of institution. And if you do have an MBA degree, you can reach out to me and we'll talk more about that specifically. So the application process is pretty straightforward. There are 3 components to it: a set of short answer questions, a resume, and a letter of recommendation. You can find all of those things and like a complete list of the questions on the website. So I recommend that you like compose your answers, in Word or in a different form, and then copy them into the application, but you can see all of them on the website. And I'll give you some tips about what makes an application especially competitive. For the short answers, be sure to keep it short. They're 200, 250 words each, and address the prompt specifically. So we're asking about your goals because we want to understand that the objectives you have will be met by the Next Step experience. So if you want to be a lawyer, we can't help you with that. If you are just interested in doing all these transition activities, we really want to see that you've given some purposeful thought to your transition, what you want to do. Even if you don't have a specific job in mind, what are some industries that are of interest? What are some things you know about yourself that you want to take into your next career? We want to see a thoughtful process there, and please be specific about those. So we know the profile of our audience here. Really pleased to have a really high caliber of applicant. Answer the question. We'll get your background from the resume. And on the point of the resume, it doesn't need to be the world's best resume. We'll work with you a lot during the program. It's a long process, but the application or admissions committee does want to see that you've made an attempt at presenting a civilian resume for a business audience. And so here's a big tip: just Google search Tuck resume format and you will find it. And so if you put your resume in Tuck format, that gives you a great start. Just avoid some of the gimmicky things that you might see, get too deep on LinkedIn and you'll come out with a really goofball resume. Just give us a business civilian resume. Again, not that it's perfect, but we want to see that you're considering the context of the program. Lastly, the letter of recommendation can be really impactful. So if if we're not quite sure about someone, or there's somebody kind of on the edge, if you give us a letter, or if your reference gives us a letter that really tells us more about you as a person, about your character, and about what you'll add to the cohort, that would make a big difference for us. And so the content is more important than who the letter comes from. So sometimes people have a really impressive recommender and they write a really useless letter. One, I recommend without hesitation, Mark Buck. That's neat, but tell me about these qualities that Mark would bring to the program, for example. And if you know a Next Step alum also, that doesn't necessarily help. It only helps if they write a great letter. So we've had some silly letters written by Next Step alums too. So focus on the content there over specifically who's writing it. It doesn't have to be a coach or a supervisor or your commanding officer. It can be a subordinate, a peer, someone you know from volunteering on your own. So again, content is important there. And the deadline. So the application deadline for the spring 2023 program is December 1st. That's our first round admission deadline. So all the applications received by December 1st will be considered in one batch. If there is space after that point, we will continue to accept applications and admit them on a rolling basis. I do expect that since this program is the first to have an on-campus component for 2 years, that there will be a very high turnout. So if anyone's really strongly wants to take part in 2023, I would encourage you to apply by December 1st to maximize that opportunity. But if you miss it, or if there's someone in your network who hears about it late, Absolutely apply after December 1st. We do take applications on a rolling basis, and there is a wait list generally for the program, which does get turned over a bit. So keep that in mind. And finally, I'll just talk a little bit about the cost of the program. Our fee structure is tiered based on the adjusted gross income of the participant. So if your adjusted gross income is $70,000 or more, the fee is $5,000. If it's less than $70,000, the fee is $2,500. And this cost is heavily subsidized by donors to the program, primarily Tuck alums and some companies who are affiliated with the school. That's how we are able to keep this cost down. A comparable tuition for a similar size program at Tuck is around $24,000. So another reason that we're really proud of Tuck and the support that our community gives to it. There are a few ways that you can get some extra support for that fee, which we'll talk about in more depth with candidates who are admitted to the program, but I'll mention them briefly now. You can use 1 month of VA benefits that covers for a vet who's benefit eligible, that covers the entire tuition. And I believe you also get a monthly housing stipend for that month as well. There are organizations such as the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee ACE program, veteran service organizations who also offer scholarships to their constituents. And I can help make those connections when the time is right. And Tuck also does offer some limited additional financial aid, which is really a grant. So if your fee was $2,500, we might be able to give you an additional discount on that amount. Usually the largest grant is about $500. And so folks, I know we're right at 1 o'clock. So if you have to jump, no worries. The session will be posted on the website so you can catch those final details. And always feel free to follow up with me with more questions. And Adrian, your question, does the fee cover lodging or travel? The fee covers tuition, materials, and meals and lodging. So the time that you're in Hanover, that fee does cover your lodging and all the food during that time, does not cover travel to and from Hanover. And that's it. That's the spiel. I'll leave you here with my email on our website, which I'd already put in the chat at the outset. I can put it back in there again. Does anyone have any final questions? I'm not seeing anything else or seeing any hands, so that feels like a good place to conclude. As I said, we're here to help. Please feel free to reach out to me if anything comes up. And again, thanks to Jen, Christian, and Karen. Great to see all of you, and have a wonderful day.